Welcome to the Thunderstock Show. My guest today is Irina Dymarsky. Hard to mispronounce. Irina, how are you doing today?
I am fantastic, Ross. I'm so excited to be here with you. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for making the time. So, you've got a pretty interesting, diverse background, but I think the first question I want to ask you is when you were in school, high school per se, what did you want to be when you grew up?
Oh, I'm going to do you one better. I'm going to go back to elementary school. Elementary school, fifth grade yearbook. You know, you have your picture, and then they ask, what do you want to be when you grow up? So, my fifth grade picture yearbook says, I want to be a businesswoman. And so, to my fifth grade self, I wanted to like carry a briefcase and wear a suit and work in like one of these like big skyscraper type buildings, which of course I do none of today. But I feel like I wanted to do good things and kind of, just like put forth products, make others people's lives better. Like that to me was a business, right? You don't really know what a business is. It's like, yeah, I want to work with people. I want to do good things. So I think that still resonates today.
That is quite a funny story. You said it was fifth grade. I think around the same time and age, I was toying with uh potentially being a professional athlete, which I think a lot of kids they think they're going to be in the pros. Um, and I think at one point it was military, but I also said I'm going to be a successful businessman. And I showed up for it was like a show and tell or something like that, and a lot of kids brought like soccer balls, and I brought a an easel with some poster board and a like pointer stick. And I remember I stole like a presentation my father had, and I like had an oversized suit. And I thought I was given the best business talk in the fifth grade classroom. So, hey,
Ah,
dreams come true, right? That's we're kind of doing what we said.
you're
So,
doing it now.
oh, the things that kids will say. So then when you got into, your later years of high school and going into college, did you have the same ambition, or did you have like what was it that you wanted to do then, and what career tracked?
Yeah, for sure. So I went to Drexel University, which is, a fantastic school, by the way, highly recommend. And when I was picking out a school, I wanted to do something with technology because technology was kind of on the forefront. In high school. Again, I may be dating myself a little bit, but we took a computer class. We learned how to type. We were starting to kind of like do things in Microsoft Office, and I was like, "This is cool." I kind of want to do something with computers, with technology. That seems like that's the forefront. I understood it. I did well in computer class. And so I was looking for a major that was related to technology, but I was a little scared of computer science. Like I didn't know that that was for me. It seemed I wanted to be kind of closer to the people again, back to like, carrying the suitcase, right? Working in a big building, big meeting. So
Hmm.
I was like, again, this is all maybe not really truly how it turned out, but I was trying to stay away from computer science. And so there were only so many programs that were really like technology but business combined. And so Drexel had this awesome program. It was information systems technology. It had a built-in business minor. And Drexel is known for their co-op program, which means you get to work with multiple different companies for 6 months, and you go to school for 6 months, and then you rotate doing that. And so you kind of bring what you learned from real companies into the classroom, and then you bring what you learned from the classroom back into the companies. And I really could not have made a better choice. I absolutely loved my time at Drexel. I loved my co-ops. I learned a ton. And the way I describe myself is, I want to simplify operational complexity. I want to focus on digital transformation. I want to do all this, enabling innovation, but it's people, process, technology. And that's what
Hmm.
Drexel taught me. It's not technology for the sake of technology. It was, there's business, there's people, there's process. And then, yes, you have to learn how to properly apply it for ultimate business impact. But it was like this holistic education. And it really, it really got me started on a really strong foundation.
I've talked to several entrepreneurs and they've said that one of the keys to their success has been putting yourself in the right environment. Are you Drexel is I don't know if it's in the heart of Philadelphia, but it's within the city of Philadelphia. Are
Yeah.
you from that area of Philadelphia?
So I grew up in the Northeast, Northeast Philadelphia. My family did move, and so I attended high school in Bucks County, but
Hmm.
still local.
Yeah.
And yeah, so Philadelphia is kind of the closest major metropolitan city. Drexel was a great school, it had a great program, and I loved kind of growing up there. And I got to work with really amazing companies. I worked at Comcast, I worked at Independence Blue Cross, I
Oh
worked at
my gosh.
like these are all companies that are right there in Center City, Philadelphia. And yeah, they really, taught me a lot of what I carry forth today still.
That's Yeah, that's pretty cool because I remember growing up more in the countryside of Pennsylvania and the people that I knew that went out and they went to the larger cities, Philadelphia being traditionally thought of as like a top five city in the United States. They've all had very interesting transformative experiences. So it sounds like your decision at Drexel is great. I also want to touch on one of the people process technology quotes that you said. I think that having that perspective of well-rounded, holistic approach to business and life is incredibly important. What and you said you learned that while you were on site. What are some of the ways that you've seen that truism evolve throughout your career?
Yeah, no, I really think it's the heart of everything. Every program, project I remember doing, it either failed because it wasn't it wasn't well-rounded, or it succeeded because it was. And I'll even add like strategy fit. There was a fantastic article in the Harvard Business Review just last week, and it was talking about the power of strategic fit. So I'll even like throw that in there, right? It's people process technology, but also why are you doing all of it? And so, you know, you talk about like the biggest programs, you have like an ERP implementation, you have an enterprise-wide program. When I worked at SAS, we were focused on customer experience. Customer experience is not a thing that you just solve with technology. You could, we implemented a new module in ServiceNow. We implemented Microsoft Dynamics. We build a technology portal, but they don't all work on their own. And then people have to use it too. So I don't know if you're familiar, or the listeners will be familiar with Field of Dreams movie with Kevin Costner.
Oh, sure.
There's that, it's actually a misquote, but it's come to be, if you build it, they will come,
Hmm.
referring to the field. Well, I'll offer you the reverse. If you build it, they will not come unless you bring people along. So like this technology, you will build it. People will not just come to your
Yeah. And if
technology.
you maintain it, they'll stay. How's that?
Right, right. So you have to, the tech adoption is not automatic. You really have to have this engagement and training and continuous support. And so, yeah, all throughout my life, all of these big initiatives, they've had to have these pillars. And if you forget them, you will have to add them at the end. Like you can say, like, oh, we don't have time right now. We'll get to that later. We'll do the training at the end. This is like the short-sightedness that I really hope that companies, protect against. That was also in the Harvard Business Review article. It was, are you winning short-term or are you winning long-term? So,
Right.
the project goes live. Your system is live. It's in production. We hit the button. It went live. That's it. Win, right? We all go do something else. No, employees are frustrated. Your adoption is low. Your innovation stalls. People just look back at that as like, what is that horrible system? Long-term failure, right? So you
And
can't just take the short-term wins. You have to really go for like the long term. Yes.
you're speaking my language. I've got two quick thoughts on that.
Yes.
One, I screenshotted a quote partially because I hated 75% of it and I love 25% of it. But it's the analogy of business and the aphorism of like dating. So it says that marketing is asking someone on a date, branding is the reason they say yes, sales is when they finally do say yes, and customer success is why they stay happily in the relationship. I agree with the last part.
Yeah.
I agree with the last part. The other parts, like asking someone on a date, I mean, that's sure, but I'm not going to ask 1,000 people to go on a date. That would just be like wasted effort, you know? And then branding, why they say yes, like, I don't know. There's a million reasons why people say yes or no. And to be honest, I'm now happily with my wife for 5-ish years. I don't want to quote myself. Let's say 4 years. Hopefully she doesn't listen to this. The exact date was January the 8th, not 6th of 2021. She thinks it's January 6th just because it's all over the news. Anyway, she said no a bunch of times before she said yes. So I don't think my brand got that much better. But the whole reason I bring that up is because customer success is why they stay happy in the relationship. When I talk to businesses, Irina, from a marketing perspective, they're like, hey, we need new leads. Hey, we need more revenue, we need more sales. We need to convert. I'm like, sure. Is it, everyone wants that. But for clients that we get 200 new sales or new leads per week, and the total amount of customers stays at 36,000 in their user base, and I'm like, how do you get 1,000 new customers a month and you're still always at 36,000 for a year? Well, what's going on? There's like no retention. It's like for every one you bring in the door, one leaves. So like maybe it's not a acquisition problem, maybe it's a retention problem.
That's huge. That's huge. Yeah. Yeah. The customer you have is worth more than any new customer, right? If you can retain your customers, you build that brand loyalty. And yeah, I agree with that.
So you mentioned ERP. Presumably, you know, whether it's an ERP system or any other type of business system, right? You've touched them. You've done a variety of business tech solutions, but I have specific experience with ERP. What is your experience with companies that are either tech solution providers or on the receiving end that are the customers of that? What are some of the key factors and differences to actually retain them and make that tech switch successful so it's not as disruptive and potentially disastrous? Because I've seen what happens if ERPs don't, like, if there's failure to launch, and it can be the kiss of death for some businesses. So what are some green flags and red flags around change management with tech?
Yeah, and I mean everything I'm going to mention now. I mean ERP is your classic, big program. So plug in instead of ERP, plug in CRM. Same thing, right? That's a big one. You're going to go with a service. Like if you're a tech company, you want to do customer service. You want to plug in a customer facing tech solution. I mean, yes, ERP, any big program. I think again, let's go back to like people, process, technology, strategy, fit, right? And we'll throw that fourth one in there. So you have to first figure out the why. Why are we doing so sometimes it's called like the burning platform, right? You're going to go out there and you're going to be like, hey Ross, we're going to do a new ERP system. And you're like, I'm fine, I'm okay as I am. And I'm like, no, you're not. But why? I have to convince you, right? Or I have to
Mm-hmm.
speak your language. So yeah, you think you're fine, but your reports take a long time. Maybe they're manual, maybe your data is not integrated, maybe you're not able to you want to change your process. Speak about process, right? Something is not working, you want to change your process. Now your technology doesn't match your process, so you want everything to be integrated. So I get to speak your language, we figure out the why, we connect it to the strategy fit, right? You have some KPIs at that company. We want to grow revenue, we want to reduce operating costs, we want to retain more of our staff, whatever it is. You engage these stakeholders early, right? You foster the sense of ownership so that everyone's in it together. You address these concerns proactively early on so that everyone's on the page, everyone's on the same page. Then you kind of go through. The other thing is kind of do what you say what you do. Right. So, hey, Ross, I know you're not going to be deep in this project. I'm going to send you a weekly communication, or I'm going to invite you to every other week a meeting, or I'm going to pick someone from your team and they're going to be involved. So how are you going to stay connected? How are you going to communicate? How are we going to be solving problems as they come up, right? So all of these things are like really setting up your project. And this is like classic PMP, PMI, right? If you get trained as a project manager, you kind of have a charter. What are we going to do? Who is
Right.
involved? How are we going to communicate? These are really important things. And a lot of people, I think, if you haven't done it, you're like, do I really have to do it? Let's just jump in and start doing it. These things really set you up for success. And then obviously you're going to kind of hold people accountable. So whether you're a small business, a startup, a large enterprise, there's probably some really key tools that you can pick out from like PMP, right, or Six Sigma. You don't have to do them all. You don't have to overwhelm. I always hear this all the time, like, we're really innovative, we're fast paced, there's only 5 of us, we don't need these tools. Yeah, you don't need 27 tools, but you may need 1 or 2 just to continue to evolve. So, a RACI matrix, who's responsible, who's accountable, who's consulted, who's informed. Do you want to throw some of those letters off? That's fine, but who's doing the work and who's going to be doing it? You can have an RI matrix, right? Who's responsible and who's informed. Whatever you do, you can adjust it. So, like kind of do your research, make sure someone who knows or have done it before is doing it, and like pick the tools that you need, run it through, and see how it works.
Yeah, I think one of the trends that I've seen of not successful adoption of tech is when the decision maker who pays for it, and the CEO or whoever's in charge of, let's call the CEO, for example, they're like, I'll have my assistant, my admin, or the secretary role. She'll be the point of contact. And then no one else who touches the software even knows that this is happening. So they're just like, why is my login not working to the old software? And they're like, oh, we're rolling out the new one. So it's like that communication in a funnel when the right stakeholders who actually have to have, like, everyone who has their day-to-day changed should be aware ahead of time. It should be on their calendar minimum,
Yes.
right? And I like how you were mentioning, not every organization, right? There's organizations with 5 members, and not all organizations have only 5 members, but even they could take some of these tools away, not the whole suite of tools.
That's right.
So when you're talking about PMI or PMP, for those that aren't familiar with those acronyms, can you explain what those terms mean?
Yes, yes. So PMI is a Project Management Institute. They're the leading body of knowledge and certification for project managers. So project management professional is your PMP. And that is a certification like if you're a doctor, you get your doctor certification and then you have to continue your education. So you have these continuing education units or credits. I think doctors do it, lawyers do it, probably CPAs do it, right? So there's a lot of different industries who have the same concept. You kind of get certified, you prove that you know what you're doing, you take some kind of test, and then you continue throughout your life to earn these PMP credits, and you kind of participate in the community. You can write articles, you can mentor others, and you can maintain these credentials. So I got a PMP certification early on in my career. Another one I got is Six Sigma. Six Sigma is historically manufacturing. It started all the way in the days of Japanese car manufacturing, but
Mm.
now can be applied to all kinds of processes. So again, you look at Six Sigma, a lot of it is tailored, or again, generically assumed to be tailored to you are manufacturing a tangible product, assembly line, big factory, but you can use it in any process. You can use it in technology. You can use it in a paper process. Like, I'm going to write something on a piece of paper, and then I'm going to walk it over to Ross, and I'm going to put it on his desk. And then Ross is going to read the paper, and maybe he's going to type it into a system. Okay, very, very, very
granular, detailed.
Yes, very non-technical process, but you can map that process and you can make it better. And there's a concept in Six Sigma called waste. So if your process has waste, that means you're putting in effort that's not translating into result. And so if we now think about technology, what you want to do is you want to design a process that has the least amount of waste, and then you want to automate it to even further optimize it. If you optimize a process that has a lot of waste, and I don't know if I'm the first one to say this, but I'm going to make it, my Irina
Go
quote.
for it. You got me hook, line, and sinker.
When you automate a bad process, you create more waste faster. And that, I don't think anybody wants to be the company that said we created more waste faster. So again, this is why it's not just throwing a technology or an automation or the latest hype about AI. Well, I'm just going to have AI do it. Well, how do you know it's the right thing to do? Like, test that whatever you're going to automate, test your process first, make sure it's efficient, effective, and it's getting to that business impact. Strategy fit, people, right? The people are loving the process. You interview them, it fits your business, it grows your company, then you automate it, then you put technology on top of it.
Wow.
I saw your eyes. You were like, I love it. Like
I was going to, the waste thing is so just fascinating to talk about, but I was going to talk about the applicability of PMP and not just manufacturing. So I've interviewed a gentleman named Carl Lefevre, who's a Six Sigma black belt, had a black belt, had a whole career in manufacturing, and now he owns a marketing agency. So one of his primary, I don't want to call it like specific IPs, but deliverables he gives to clients is like a roadmap where it's like, all right, you sign on this date. Here's the things you can expect down the road. And this is what, like a tangible, they could print it out and hold it and look at it, like mapped to be where you started with us and where to expect to be based on these steps. And the way that you describe waste has me thinking like you could be the best at doing something. So for example, one of the companies I worked with in the past would take Excel spreadsheets, print them out with use a ruler and a pencil, make manual markups, take pictures, email those pictures to someone that did admin, and then they would go into Excel and change. So that process, this was like for receiving shipments of goods. So then when we brought in somebody that was pretty darn wizardly at Excel, he created macros and formulas, and it got done in like 30 seconds versus 3 days. So like, on one hand, it's like, oh, how do we automate like the picture taking and the reception, the data entry? Or it's like, how do you use Excel better? That's one example I can think of that speaks to your waste. It's like, you don't want to be the best at doing the wrong thing.
Right.
So fascinating. Less tactical and technical, because I could get excited and go down these rabbit holes very, very easily and quickly. I just love strategic improvement. But one question I have is more about the why, or maybe what. And it's what inspires you to do what you do.
So
hard left turn.
Yeah, as a joke, one Six Sigma tool is called the 5 whys. Can keep going deeper and deeper on the 5 whys. So let's go back to what I mentioned about why I chose the major that I did in college. It's to create business impact. It's to create some good, it's to put some good out into the world. And so I've been really, really lucky because I have had fantastic opportunities to work at, let's say, a pharma company, a medical device company. So when you talk about what is the why of those companies, That is to provide medicine to people who are sick. It is
Hmm.
to improve outcomes of medical procedures in the operating room. I worked for a tech company. And so, yeah, the tech company is producing a tech product. Who is using the product? Well, the product is used by financial institutions to reduce fraud.
Mm.
To it's being used by by pharma and life sciences companies to find better populations for clinical trials. It's to add analytics and data-driven decisions to day-to-day life. I worked in a services company. Again, what are you doing? You are supporting other companies who have a why, who have a mission. And if you resonate with that mission, which I do, I mean, there's a lot of things in the world that we can fix, and so if I'm like a small part of, and you have to kind of see the progression, it's not always clear. I think sometimes IT people say, well, I just do the network, I'm just a network guy. I don't know how that relates to the business, but you have to walk it through. And again, let's go back to that Six Sigma, the 5 whys. So you keep getting deeper and deeper. Why are we going to do this? To make more money. Great. Why do we want to make more money? Well, because we want to have more money to reinvest in our product. Why do we want more money to reinvest in our product? So that we can create you keep going deeper, or like, why do we have this problem? And you get to the root cause. It's a root cause analysis. So you can do it the opposite way. So I said, go from the top down. So you can take the smallest thing that an individual does at an organization and you layer it up until you find the biggest why that resonates. And so, I can be walking around here saying, Irina, what do you do? I make people healthier, right?
Mm.
I bring new technology to the world. We put out technology innovation in terms of customer experience. You go to a concert, there's a speaker system, there's lights. Who did that? Some people did that. Some technology company did that. What about immersive experience? What about you eating out in a restaurant? Like all of these things in the world, somebody dreamt up and a whole lot of people made happen. So to me, it's like having the big why, resonating with it, and then being part of that success. So then I can say, I ran a project, it was successful, it helped the company do X, it helped us achieve that mission. We either saved money, we had that money to reinvest, we made more revenue, we can do more for the patients, for the end customer, for the consumers, etc. Right? So I'm passionate about doing the right thing and putting my skill to use, and then kind of seeing the success and kind of being part of this bigger why.
Yeah, that's such an interesting way to frame the answer. It's like so unique because when I have talked to other people and let's just say I say, "Oh, what did you want to be when you grew up?" They're like, I wanted to help people, so I wanted to be a police officer, or I wanted to help people, and so I wanted to be a doctor or nurse." In your answer, you said similar things, but just in a completely separate degree of whys down the road, where you're preventing fraud. So in some respect, you're keeping the law. So that's like police officer, or oh, you're helping people, with their experience with pharmaceutical or medical device. So like you're still helping people's health. You're just not a doctor or nurse. So it's like your skill set is applicable to helping people in the widest degree of variance. Whereas if someone wants to be not saying there's anything wrong with being a police officer or a doctor or nurse, any of those professions, they're highly needed and necessary. But for those that are motivated by the single why of I want to help people, therefore I should become this like role, I would then suggest anyone listening, ask yourself 4 more whys and then choose your college major and probably go to Drexel and do information, you know.
Well,
But
obviously there's different whys for different people, and there's a lot to do
But
with, what.
the process of asking why and 5, giving yourself at least 4 to 5 explanations
Yeah.
would solve a ton of problems if no one took anything else from this interview at all. Just like drill down your why.
Yeah. And I'm a little bit unique. I think that this whole interview is about, I kind of knew what I wanted to be, and I had enough flexibility because technology is evolving. So I had enough flexibility to stay in technology, but do all these different things. I mean, there's so much research nowadays that really just major in whatever excites you and get some good skills, like get some good people skills, get some good process skills, learn how to get things done, and then you can apply it to whatever happens. Because if you're, I have younger kids, so my son always says, like, I think I want to be, a computer person, and then the next week he wants to be a politician, and then, like you mentioned, Ross, he wants to be a professional soccer player, and and that's all well and good, but I always say to him, you may be something that doesn't even exist today. Like, you
Oh,
may go to college for something that doesn't even exist. And if for anyone who wants to look me up on LinkedIn, I just posted, there was a TEDx talk. It was fantastic. It was called Designing Your Life, almost like a product. So, like, I applied it into that space, but 80% of people, this TEDx quoted, 80% of people end up doing something different than what they studied in school.
oh,
Because your life
100%.
is full of pivots, but you can learn something and take something from every experience. And so, like you and I just said, I learned how to apply technology to business problems. I didn't learn specifically how to implement this tool, for this company, ever, right? That's not what the education is. So learn some foundations and then kind of let yourself be free and explore and see where it lands you.
That's such an interesting, man, it's such an interesting POV. When you said that what you want to be when you grow up may not yet exist.
Yeah.
And for some, I'll tell a story that's universally applicable, and then I'll tell one personal. First one, the number one YouTube channel on earth is Mr. Beast. So guy name is Jimmy. He's 26 years old. I believe at this point his net worth approaching 2 billion, and he got all of his net worth from his YouTube channel, which has like, I think you could have every United States citizen twice subscribed. It's like 670 million subscribers on YouTube or something like that. He spent like $100 million or invested $100 million into an Amazon thing. But when he was 11 and his mother was in the military and she worked like late nights at like a Waffle House as a single mom trying to make ends meet, she's like, Jimmy, please get off the computer. Like, don't do YouTube. You're ruining your future. And now he bought her like 2 mansions.
Yeah.
So that's a perfect example, extreme example, but perfect example that what he wanted to do with his life didn't yet exist. Like, people didn't think that was a real thing. And now, like, he's the most popular internet person on that specific thing that he does in the world. And number two is, I remember very clearly, vivid as day, that 10 years ago, dating myself, when I was doing marketing for a brand, the primary function of what I did for 40 hours a week, and I worked more than 40 hours a week, but at least 40 hours a week, like my full-time thing, I now offer to companies with AI, with a mix of like tech stack enablement and AI, like 15 times the output that I did as a person, with like the same, if not equal to, like the same results for no human time other than setup, and maybe like 15 times cheaper
There you go.
in 10 years. And I wouldn't say that I'm the world's best tech person or whatever, but I essentially, like, the job that I did 10 years ago, in my point of view, shouldn't be a job anymore. Like, in 10 years. So what's 10 years from now going to look like? I don't know. Probably equally as crazy. So,
But there's something that there's that there's a certain, so you apply technology, but you're bringing something unique. Otherwise, your
oh,
customers wouldn't be reaching out to you. So there's some knowledge, or
yeah.
there's something that that makes you the specialist.
Yeah, I probably spent 3,000 hours doing that job function before I figured out that there was a tech solution to it. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
different. Yeah, you're right. There's a little bit of a difference. So, what are some of the key milestones or achievements, Irina, that you can look back, whether you've already hit and you're like, oh, this is like, affirmative of why I'm on the track that I'm on, and these are some, nice things? Or what are some of the goals that you have that maybe you haven't hit, but you want to in the future?
Yeah, I think scope is probably where my future is heading. So there's new technology. I really want to keep learning. I mean, this continuous learning concept is really big. Endless amounts of articles. If you're not playing with AI, and I say playing like in the most in your most personal life, so just like put it on your phone, talk to chat gpt, ask it some questions, interact with it, look up other AI tools. Keep learning, just keeping up with it, because otherwise you will be left behind. So I think just staying engaged and understanding what's happening for me in technology, that's certainly a milestone. um, and
That
I
you'll never stop reaching for.
you can, because otherwise you're out. Like there's no conversation. And then I think the scope of application. So continuing to share my knowledge. I love doing this podcast. Hopefully someone watches it and they take a kernel of something away. So maybe just leaning more into education or volunteering. So I've had so many amazing mentors and people who have helped me get where I am today. I think now I'll continue to do my, let's call it the job, right? You do your job and you give back to the company, and you support the why and the missions of these amazing companies. But what am I doing personally? So I think just trying to get more involved in the community, or like we're doing this podcast, or kind of trying to create awareness and kind of lifting up other people, I think is what I want to do, and spending some time giving back to the world. If sorry, it's a little it's a little soft and fuzzy, but I think that's now the pivot of the career, right? So you're up and coming, you're always seeking for someone to help you and kind of pull you to the next rung. So I think I'm getting to a point in my life where I think I now have something to give back. And so I'm looking forward to that next milestone of trying to give back and seeing the impact through others, not so much through yourself personally.
Yeah, I think when you talk about warm and fuzzy, not everyone has that answer, but my feedback on your answer is like you spent so much of your time and career developing your skill sets and learning, and you're always learning. But like, what's the use of the learning and the development if you can't share it with others and also help others to develop? So I
Yeah.
think that's a, a very, how do I say, wise answer, right? Because if I were to ask someone, not that they've ever answered this, but if they did, I just want to accumulate as much wealth as possible. And then I would go through the Irina process of, but why? Like, what are you going to do with that? I want to be the best in the world at this. Okay, why? Like, what are you going to do once you're the best in the world? Like, what's next? So you have an answer of, look, the goal is to never reach a finish line. The goal is to continually improve with your technological and your people, like how you give back. So I think that's on brand for what we've discussed.
Yeah, reach for scope. Yeah, and I'll there's another thing I thought of. There's a multiplier effect to all this. So there's just, not to get political or news, right? There's always something to solve in the world. And I think the multiplier effect has to have a play in, I'll say, the next iteration of the world. And this, I'm not really sure where the concept started from, but again, you have this like strategic fit. Um, so when you start a company, you say, here are 2 or 3 things that if I do them together, they will lead
Mm,
to a multiplier effect, because everything works better together, right? So if I
right.
get things right, they'll work better together. So now I'm going to apply it to people, process, technology, right? When aligned, they don't just add the value that they themselves add, they really multiply the impact. And to just give you another answer to what I already said, is how can I become a multiplier out in the world? And so if you can lead as a multiplier, you can create more people who want to do good, right? Then hopefully you kind of like make the world a better place. And so the more of these healthy and positive things you align, hopefully the more they multiply beyond just their own value.
That is, I, I I can't help myself but tie it back to a marketing frame.
Do
When
it.
you're talking about these multipliers, the way you described it, when I talk with businesses about finding their brand,
Mm-hmm.
not creating a brand, right? We're not trying to fabricate it out of nothing. It's like uncovering what exists as your brand. To use myself as an example, if I would just say I'm a fractional CMO, period, there's like, I don't know, 25,000 other fractional CMOs that exist on the internet, like in the United States, maybe more. I don't know. Last I checked, there's like 80,000 people that list themselves as fractional C-suite on LinkedIn. Let's just say a quarter of them are CMOs, whatever. But if I said fractional CMOs that specialize in EOS management, that have private equity background, that were former semi-professional cage fighters, that do podcasting, that have at some points much longer beards than this, that like to serve businesses that are outside of major metro areas. That pool shrinks and shrinks and shrinks,
Yeah.
and it's not making me better or necessarily better or worse. It's not like a good or bad. It's a right fit, right? Strategic alignment. So
Mm-hmm.
my whole goal, and I think every business that I talk to's goal is like finding out really who you are as your personal brand and your business's brand, and then presenting that to the world to find people that align with who you already are, because a handful of great fit clients far surpasses trying to market to everybody and anybody. Not only will your conversion rates go up, your satisfaction, yada yada yada, but like then you start to build a moat around you and say, here's exactly who I am. And it becomes more, the term good, I'm so averse to. I do want to pivot to that. I think the way you talked about is like efficient or likelihood of achieving outcomes.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, that's for whatever reason on your answer of these multipliers. I think for anyone listening that wants to make a larger impact, just start with the impact that you've already made and almost like document it and be like, okay, like why do I have these opinions or thoughts of my own career and myself? And then list out the things about it. And then my suggestion would be to make like a Venn diagram of like, all right, where's the intersection of how all these things relate?
Venn diagram, another lovely tool that can be used independently of an entire framework. Yes, yes. Take stock of what what makes you you. Like you said, right? There's if you just go on the surface, there's hundreds, thousands, millions of IT technologists, people who do technology projects, PMPs, Six Sigma. So yeah, what is your brand? What makes you unique? What makes you you? And then make that your passion, and hopefully then you find people who resonate with it. Because going back to the customers that you have, the passionate customers become the voice of your company, right? You're never going to have a better advocate than someone who's screaming on the top of their lungs, and I say this metaphorically, right? Typing out on LinkedIn, right? Or posting online about how great your product is and how it made a tremendous difference. So the same thing for people, like find those people who make you feel good and who amplify your self-worth and your confidence, and ask them, why am I awesome? Like, why are you my friend? Why do you like
Mm.
working with me? How have I made a difference? Take those things and make that your brand, and like there'll be no stopping you.
I want to be conscious of time because I could definitely keep talking to you, and but probably both have other things to do.
Yeah.
But one thing that's just so fascinating is it's common practice to have frequently asked questions with like answers
Mm-hmm.
on websites, right?
Mm-hmm.
But what you described is almost the inverse, which is like frequently received testimonials, right? Like, what are people saying nice? Like, what are others saying nice about us versus what are others asking about? How else can we answer?
That's
I love that, right? Because that's almost the more honest way to get to your, in marketing terms, NPS or net promoter score, which I
mhm.
think is one of the most important and often overlooked metrics that brands don't even track.
Oh,
It's like,
it's the best metric.
I think it's the best metric. So, one last question. All right. I promise I won't go on any more tangents. It's one of my, I'd say it's an iteration. I'm, process improving, trying to get better at my favorite question.
Yeah.
So you have children. You said you have at least a son who wants to be a professional soccer player one week and something else the other week.
Yeah.
If you were to mentor someone, for us, kind of easy. We have children. It's kind of like, our job in some respects. What what is, I don't want to say one piece of advice, but like what is one approach that you take towards mentoring others? Like how do you want to be known as a mentor? How do you want to do it?
Hmm. That's a tricky one. I didn't prep an answer for this question.
I didn't even think about the question until I started talking to you.
Well, I think it's so this conversation, you and I have talked maybe a few times before, but we don't really know each other. And it's finding the connection points to be able to go deeper. So I
Mm,
think as a mentor, we talked about finding strategic fit for companies. We talked about finding the right customers and kind of the right branding. I think in a mentorship, it's not taking a person and making them see your point or making them more like you. Like that is not the point of mentorship. That maybe perhaps is the opposite of good mentorship. Right, so it's not like pushing your opinion or
you're not a dictator.
right, you're not trying to steer the person in a different direction. So I mean, certainly I go back to the listening, just listen more than you talk.
Mm,
And then like listen for the question. So you asked me questions and I shared my opinion. Is it right? I don't know. I may think it's right. It's my opinion. If someone's going to watch this podcast and say, I don't agree with anything Irina had to say. And that is perfectly fine because everyone comes at life through their own lens based on their previous experience. So I think to be a mentor, you have to almost, I mean, this is kind of silly, but it's almost everything we talked about. It is what is the strategic fit of this mentorship, if I may be so bold as to kind of put that, like, you are the stakeholder, right? Here are the stakeholders, here's how we're going to communicate. I'm going to bring these experiences, we're going to try things out, and we're going to measure success. So we loosely touched upon how to measure success. So like a KPI on a project, right? What is, once I do this thing, whatever we're going to do, what is going to get better out of it? And
mm,
I'll give you one quick like red flag you asked. Sometimes picking the wrong KPI can be disastrous to your entire initiative. So I once read a case study about a company who wanted to encourage their sales representatives to be more active. So they instituted a KPI of having to drive a certain amount of miles. So, like, you have a salesperson, they're in their car, they have to drive X number of miles, right? So here you go, you have this KPI. What behavior do you think that drives, right? The company thought that KPI was going to drive the behavior of, like, let's hustle and get on the road and go to see more customers. In fact, people were just aimlessly driving around, or they were taking the long route to see a customer. And so they didn't increase their sales, they didn't increase the number of customers visited. Nobody increased the productivity at this point. So again, is it silly? Is it a real use case? I mean, I do remember seeing it. Is it made up? Perhaps. But let's take the learning out of that story. Pick a KPI that you, and really test it, right? Like really test, like, is this really what we want to measure? Is this how we're going to be successful? Is this the measure of success? So in a mentorship, maybe it starts out being, I have a certain goal. So set that first goal, achieve that goal, then set the next one. Perhaps it's more philosophical. It's we want to Tuesdays with Maury kind of book, like you just want to share your life experience and you take from it whatever you want to take with it. Or maybe we want to be more specific. So I think
Mm.
like adjust mentorship, be ready for it to go however it goes because you can't drive it in a certain direction, and then have fun with it and just bring the passion, and people will resonate with this is what I want to have happen, and we're positively moving forward together.
I don't know where to start, but I'll just say, love that answer. I'm now going to ask that question more often because it was,
Mic drop.
yeah, that was like mic drop. Um, Irina, where can people find you to connect?
So I am on LinkedIn. I'm sure we'll have a write up. We'll link to my profile in LinkedIn. So yeah, connect, follow, reach out, email, message. I'm open. I'm open to connections. I'm a naturally curious person, so kind of want to learn about all the different things. And if we can ever find a mutually beneficial thing to make a world a little bit of a better place, then yeah, reach out. I'd love to meet you.
Thank you so much for your time, Irina. And thank you so much for your time, anyone listening. If you're like me, you probably had several notes or key takeaways that are going to help you to adjust and improve your life. So that's the goal of the show. Valuable brainstorms to enhance your life lived in pursuit of property. I don't run as in the show, but I do have one ask, and that is to share it with a friend if you found some value. Until next time, be well.